Cool, thanks.
Thank you. So, hello everybody. We are welcoming you to the next webinar for openLCA, the Environment Footprint Database in openLCA. I'm Andreas Siro, CEO of Green Delta. We are developing openLCA among other things, and I'm here with Jonas Hoffmann, also Green Delta. And we try to present you the Environment Footprint Database that we have presented and developed for openLCA recently after some time of development on our side, and explain somehow the background, how to get access to it, and so forth. I hope it's interesting, and I hope that some will see this webinar. I have thought of these points for today, and by the way, we have a different microphone now than last time, because we got some feedback that the microphone needs to be improvement. So that is a new microphone. I hope that's better. Let's see that it's really better. I have these points for today that I will go through with both slides and also the tools. First, background to the Environment Footprint Database, then license conditions, how to use the database, and then a bit on our what we did, our work, preparation work for the database for openLCA, our approach, and about the errors we fixed. Closer look at the database, and then, of course, how to get access to this, and hopefully we have a vivid question and answer session as last times. Now I switch to the smaller setting here, and let's first have a look at the background for this database. It's maybe, if you are in the LCA domain, it's not too new for you, I guess, but of course, environment footprint is a very big effort from the European Commission to streamline, to upscale LCA and to bring this really into policy. So it's a very important, of course, initiative. And it's a bit bold headline I have put here, but it's, I think, correct. The Environment Footprint Database is the database for the environment footprint. It's a methodology of the European Commission, so that is the reference database to be used for this methodology. Here's a screenshot just from the central website for the environment footprint of the Commission, and that brings as a consequence, so to say, that with this prominent setting, or just it happens so that you have in the environment footprint methodology, and therefore also in the database, own inventory modeling rules. So, for example, circular footprint formula to take care of previous and next life cycles, but also other things. You have an own nomenclature for flows and things, and you have own impact life cycle impact assessment methods. And now, it's of course interesting to check where did you get, or where can you get the datasets from. The central page is this screenshot from the page yesterday, the EF Environment Footprint Data Network. This page, it's tiny maybe, but I read, will allow access to the EF compliant datasets from different third-party nodes. Currently, some nodes are not capable to connect to the central network, and those are available in the dedicated section. And you see that no node is listed here, so therefore no node is currently capable to connect to the central network. And it's a bit interesting that this situation exists since environment footprint started about 10 years ago or so, but that's how things go. And this dedicated section is here. Here you see the different nodes that exist. So for European Solvents Group, SEPE, EcoInvent, Environment Footprint Representative Products, Blanc, and it continues like this, Quantis, RDC, Sphera. You see that maybe you spotted, it was maybe a bit fast, but you spotted maybe that there are different version numbers for the EF data sets, 2.0 and 3.1. Some haven't been migrated, if you want, to version 3, so therefore these have been pulled down or turned or whatever, stopped the websites. And some have been updated. And for some, then you have different versions available, but for some also you only have access to the newest version. And you see this in the description here. It's of course also visible. Maybe like from here, owner, that this is not European Commission really, but these nodes are hosted and owned by different associations who, for example, won tenders for preparing datasets for the database and are also responsible for managing this and for uploading datasets and for modifying datasets. So it's a very decentralized system, not connected, and that is interesting and brings some consequences also for the database that we will see in a minute. Basic idea for this lifecycle data network, so which is in preparation, as you believe, from the central website that I shared initially, is this green circle where you have the data network and then different entities, the blue bubbles, connecting to this and basically exchanging data. That is, of course, very nice idea, I think. And I didn't type it, but you see here that there's a very bold statement. All dataset registers are compliant with quality requirements aimed at to guarantee dataset quality, and there's some typos, but dataset quality and coherence in terms of methodology, documentation, nomenclature for both ICD and PEF, or EF and OEF. And yeah, that is the basic idea. We come to this in also some slides later. Now, license conditions. It's a bit difficult because it's, of course, legal terms, and also because due to the decentralized structure, the different nodes can have different license conditions and different policies for managing data. So in a summary, or roughly, and I'm not a lawyer, of course, but roughly, for users, you're allowed to use these datasets for free in the context of environmental footprint. So that is quite nice. For data providers, so these nodes, there's the possibility to sell these datasets for other contexts. So if you want to make just normal, so to say, LCA case studies, not environmental footprint, then you can do this, but you need to pay then possibly a license fee to these node owners. But maybe some, or I know some also don't charge this, but some do. And for redistributors, so LCA software providers like us, for example, it is not permitted to sell the database as such, but you need to come to an agreement with the data providers again, and that is a bit difficult typically. But it's about the selling, and the free integration into a tool that costs a license fee is fine. And side note here, this is of course not perfect for us who are providing open source tools that are free, unless this integration is really not much effort, and we will explain a bit that this was not the case. So therefore, yeah, Jonas, so really laughing. So this is really therefore not really given. Yeah, and use advice for this version in openLCA. So we will show you that we implemented this and provide this for openLCA. It is good to use this database in the context of environment footprint, because this is then falling into this allowed in the context of EF without additional payments for users. Now, some words on how we, what we did for preparing the database for openLCA. It was, I just put it like this, not exactly nice and easy work, and you really, Jonas did this, so yeah. And we have published with the database together this summary document, and it's not, it's of course not the idea to make name and shame here, but just to raise awareness that this is not a perfect shape. And I can say I really appreciate that JRC, or European Commission if you want, but in the form of the JRC, contacted me, and we just had this morning a meeting to discuss maybe improvements or so. So therefore, it's good that this is that this is somehow taken up, if you want. But still, it's good to maybe explain a bit what happens when you bring these different, or when you try to make one coherent database from the different nodes as they are existing now, and to explain this to you a bit. And I think it's now quite nice that we have achieved to, I think, make a consistent version of these data sets. And now I don't have a more detailed picture, but we have, you see, some points listed in this public document that we also distribute with the database. And that is really quite some, you would say, fundamental or basic things that you have sometimes the same, or in LCD, which is the format of the database, every element has a UID number that is supposed to be unique. And it happens that you have different ID numbers for units that have the same name. And that is, of course, very confusing and also leads to problems in calculation. We have quite often calculation factors that are not really, characterization factors, sorry, that are not really specified. We have duplicate UIDs, so where you see this is the same, not only for units, but for flows or product, especially flows, where you see this is the same flow, but it is not, it has a different ID number. We have no function unit or quantitative reference for processes, and other things. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of different things that we needed to correct. I think it is a bit, yeah, it's a bit speculative to think about how this can happen. But of course, I think these, for one, these data sets have been prepared by different entities using different technical tools. Also, some of these tools, as we know in LCA, are not really understanding ID numbers, so therefore they operate by names or so. And then this is, yeah, you don't see in the tool the ID number of the data set. And there are other reasons possibly too, but it's really good to think about how to improve this. But that's maybe more high-level specific discussion to maybe data providers with the commission, and not for the broad user base, so to say, where we want to distribute the tools to. Here it's a bit, so we published this summary document. It's only 8 pages, as you see, but then we have a larger page where we have internally written by Jonas, where we've internally documented for us all the different things we need to do to check and correct the data sets, basically. And I took just one arbitrary example, and that is the multiple UIDs for product flows. And you see that bamboo fiber appears 9 times. So it's the same, you would assume the same product, and has different ID numbers, but 9 different ID numbers. And that is, of course, very inconvenient, let's say, for an LCA tool where you rely on ID numbers, because then you can't really specify what is the specific case that you look after. It is not so. So we check this in LCD. You have, of course, also locations that can be linked to product flows or to any flow, and that could be a reason for this, multiplication of the products. But it's not the case that we have different locations for these products, but they have no other specified information. So this was lost or not provided, meaning you have really complete duplicates. And then in this case, we decided to take one of these ID numbers and let the others, remove the others. And you see here in this table the final UID. So this is the one that survives, so to say, and we remove the others. So you will not find the others in our database version, but only this one that you see in this table. And it's really just one example of these 10 points that we found. Yes. And it's a bit, it was a bit temptation to bring this in. All data sets are compliant with quality requirements and guarantee data sets quality. So it's a bit, you wonder, is it really true? Or is it maybe over-promising and not really met? But this statement from the central web page with the LCDN claims. Yeah, and here again, but it's a bit repetition. So we took the datasets from the different node, but what is new here is, because of this appearance of duplicate ID numbers, the sequence mattered. So we got different results depending on where we started to import dataset packages from. And the idea, it's a bit in the end quite logical. So this worked here. And I thought it makes sense because we started first with the JRC node itself, so to say. And then I knew that Sphera had the first project to deliver data sets for energy and transport, and therefore we started to import this first and then proceeded in this sequence. And that was then really providing good results. And it's also a bit funny, you could say that this is necessary. So ideally you can say it's fine to have distributed data packages, but then it shouldn't matter where you start to import and you can just combine them, but that's not the case. Yes, so in really high level summary, we fixed errors that we found. We improved usability. For example, we can show this. We added locations to product systems names because we have product systems in the database, and you have maybe 20 or so data product systems for one case, and they all have the same name. So therefore, it's quite difficult to distinguish them. But they have different locations, so therefore we added this to make it easier to distinguish. We imported also the methods, and we did not touch or change the flow nomenclature and ID numbers or so, apart from that removal that I explained, meaning that the database is then still fully compliant with the EF methodology. And I mean, assuming the original data sets provided by the nodes are also compliant, but this is really, so we did not modify this with the idea, and openLCA supports this to really fully capture and reflect the PEF nomenclature and modeling procedures. Then, yeah, this is the result in a screenshot. So you have many different, I counted yesterday, 16,600 or so different processes and a lot of different product systems. And this is all the database. Yeah, I can then look into the specific, or I can show this live. Let's see. Yes, so we just switch. And I can close that because I just showed this to the, I can leave it also. So this is here, it's a bit small maybe, but here's the database. Maybe if you know openLCA, then this is the structure that we have here. Projects, nothing but product systems. There are these many different product systems that are basically the same type of product, but in different locations. So barley grain dried, for example, and so on. And each of these product systems is not complicated. So let's just open one here. And then you see it's just like this. So it always has only one additional layer. You may wonder about these connectors. Somehow you wonder maybe about these connectors. That happens because in the ICD database, the flows are different can be different in the connected systems. So you see here electricity consumption mix at consumer becomes electricity processing at plant, and that's, I mean, it's okay, of course, but so it can be, it's possible that you say we have here apples and they're oranges and they're connected, and this is in openLCA not allowed. In openLCA you must have the same flow inputs and outputs, so it doesn't change its nature if you want. And therefore, to overcome this, we had the idea to make a connector in between for each connection. Basically, it's very stupid but effective. So it just say this is here input from one process and output to the next process, and that allows, of course, to connect everything and fits to openLCA requirements. And since these systems are really not large, it's not inflating a lot. So it's maybe still manageable. And also for us, not otherwise possible for now. Yeah. Of course, maybe so these product systems are interesting, but most interesting are probably the processes, and there's quite a lot. Maybe if I fold this down, so we have connectors are from us, so to say, but end of life, energy, materials, other service system, transport services, and it's really a lot. But it's typically system processes. So that is in openLCA these filled icon, and yeah, it's what you see also because ICD has a picture for the process, and those that were created not from ZimaPro but from Gabi, they also have a picture typically, and then we also have this picture here in the below, which is often quite instructive. And then you have here yeah, just elementary flows because it's a system process. And what I mentioned here is, what I mentioned with the location is what you see here is that ICD has this nice feature that you can just have a flow and then say this flow happens in the process at a certain location. So you don't need to have a multiplied flow or so, but you only need one dump site flow. It's a bit funny name, but don't wonder about this. And then you can say this happens in this location, and that's quite flexible and nice. And we can reflect this format structure now in openLCA, which is quite useful. So that was a waste treatment process, and then we have quite a lot of these different documentation fields in ICD. We also reflect quite nicely, and that's hopefully useful for users. Is there a comment? Maybe Jonas, you need to summarize, but
I don't know. I think it depends, like total amount of characterization factor, release year, impact category needed, trivial data, targeting research. Not sure what this is referring to, but
so maybe I go through this, and then we have a collection of different questions, but nice to see that some are active in the chat already. Hopefully also the microphone is better, so that would be ideal for us. And I'm not used to have this, but it seems to work fine, so I'm quite so far happy about this. I'm trying to open then not end of life, but something more from production. It's somehow, of course, these we just take the images as they are, so sometimes they're a bit you wonder why this must be that large, but you just see this, and sometimes it's quite useful. And so we really reflect the full documentation, and that's hopefully helpful for you to understand then the background of this process. This is here, so that was the waste treatment. Therefore, we have the product here in openLCA on the input side, incineration good as waste flow, and here that's production. Therefore, we have the product on the output side as production of 1 kilo, and that is the process. And that's about the maybe the database. Maybe there are more questions to this. It's nicely more complete than the second version that we have on Nexus. That is from several years ago, 2.5 or so years ago. But it was really maybe I did not emphasize enough. It was really an effort to bring it into openLCA. Therefore, we also waited with this a bit, but we also waited with this a bit because of the license conditions, and that's something I try to explain now, I think. We had this closer look at the database, and I can come back to this if there are questions. But now how to get the database and the DAL. It's not an English recipe, but I got the idea. So, we had this problem, if you want, that creation of the database or importing and refining the database is quite an effort, and we are not allowed to charge for the result. And then because we have an open source tool that is broadly used, it's not really that we say we need to do this for marketing or so, and we can't get any income. And I got this email for another database, but very similar. So this database has an open source license. It can be used in commercial product. Point is that if you change the database and embed it into some kind of tool, you cannot sell that changed database. Combination has to be free as well. And what you can do is develop a tool that is independent from the database, and then make the tool available for a fee and sell that, basically. And that is basically what we do. But I mean, we don't charge prices as the LCA tools that you see here, but we developed the DAL, Database Analyser and Launcher, and it basically looks like this. So it's basically an openLCA, but can't calculate and can't change anything. So you can inspect data sets, and you can look for different flows in the database, and you can look for different processes and open them. But you cannot edit anything, and you cannot modify anything, and you cannot add new things. But you can export this whole database as Solca file, and also copy this to your workspace. So then afterwards you can use it as a normal openLCA database. And when you open these processes, then you see something like this. So this, we are not in openLCA, but in this Database Analyzer Launcher, and then it's the same environmental footprint database, and there you see the same, really the same content, of course, and can check this. Yeah. Maybe also here I can show this live. This is this Database Analyzer Launcher. It's so far available only as a zip file in Windows, because we wanted to make it quite streamlined development. It's luckily really that people are interested in this, and that so therefore we could consider also making Mac versions as we have for openLCA, but that will take a bit of time maybe. So when you unzip this, it's just a zip file. When you unzip this and start the exit, then you see this first license information for the database, and then you see here one database in it, and that's what I showed. So this is just the product systems and the processes, and they are of course identical to the one, because I obtained it also from here, from the one that I have shown in openLCA. Yeah, and the main thing is that you can, or maybe I show how to open and a process here. So you see this and you can inspect it, but you cannot change amounts, and so that's all passivated, so to say, but it's interesting for inspection, of course. And the main point is that you can export this as a Solca file, and then you can restore this database in openLCA and use it. And yeah, and you can also check whatever the parameters used here. I think there are some, yeah, but maybe that's not the main use case. But for us, it's more so. Luckily, this yeah is a mechanism which allows us to. Oh, that's wrong. Sorry. Which allows us to spend some effort with the database and to distribute it and get some revenue from this, but not. Yeah, I showed you this. But we made a quite moderate fee, I think, but a fee. So you get this from Nexus. We have a new section there, utility, where you can get this for a fee, and then you get this zip file that contains the database. Good. I think it was maybe a bit shorter than usual, but I thought it's not so much benefit to go through these different mistakes that we found. We could spend a half day about this, but then it's basically for normal users, I think, more interesting that we have, I think, now covered this and fixed it, and maybe to discuss with the more responsible partners how this can be maybe made better in future. And I think there's already ongoing communication, which I think is nice. Yes, so are there, now it's maybe time to go to the question and answer session as last part of the webinar. Do you have any points that we need to or should address and that are also interesting for others?
So maybe I can read out one. There's a question if there is a major difference between the previous and the current version of EF, and if there are new categories included now.
Yeah, we did not make a comparison, but I think you are, for the new PFCR, you are required to use this new version. So therefore it's quite recommended, and there are quite many new processes. I don't have, we could have made this overview, but I didn't do it. There are about 5,000 or so new processes, I think. So it's quite a better coverage than before. Also because of feedback, I mean, we are also involved in pilots or in tools using or being fully compliant with the EF methodology. And before it was an issue that you were only allowed to use EF datasets, and then sometimes some key datasets were missing. That has been improved, but not everything is, of course, it's not perfect yet. But sorry to give a very qualitative answer.
But there are also no more unit processes.
No, it's really, so it's still all system process based. I know that the Commission is now discussing a version that is really unit process based, but that is of course much, you could say, much more precious than aggregated system processes, because you share much more knowledge, and that's more difficult, I think, to get this. But let's see how it evolves indeed.
There's a question concerning, can the database be updated? For instance, if someone updates their node, like, can this database be updated then if for instance, only one data set or some data set will be additionally put into?
Yeah, that is a good question. And somehow the management is really not perfect, I personally thinking. So you know that we have the collaboration server for openLCA, and that is somehow really able now to nicely cover changes in data sets. But here we it's really every node owner can on his or her own decide to stop the server, to delete data sets, to remove data sets, to change data sets, and to put new ones on the node. But you need to visit the node to see this. So you don't really it's no other possibility. And if you have no previous collection of the data sets, then if something is removed, you don't see this at all. So therefore, this is really something that I think could be improved, especially because there's technology that allows this. But so far, this is, of course, theoretically, we could include when a new one data set is added to one node, we could include this in the database, but it's a bit a question, how should we be notified about this and so on. But I think it's good to discuss this with GRC about the general policy for the management, how updates should be handled, because I think if you take it really serious, and if it's the reference database where important decisions are based on, then it's somehow strange that it's just you can get different results from one day to the next and no one is informed. And so that, you theoretically need to document this, but it's sometimes forgotten and so on. So therefore, it's really better to have a technical solution, I believe, but that's not in place yet.
Okay, next question. In the previous EF database version, it was not able to model end of life using the opposite direction approach or material flow logic. Is it possible in the newer version, add-on, or should the circular footprint formula be used?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for this. So yes, it is now possible to need to find openLCA here. So I showed you this waste treatment process, and that's thanks to Jonas. We instructed you, but still, thanks to Jonas. You see here that's exactly the opposite direction approach. So you have here a waste flow, and that is on the input side of the process, and that is allowing you then to follow this. So modeling like you normally model now waste since increment 3.5 or so in openLCA, because it's more intuitive. And I think this is quite positive. Always, of course, you can follow the other approach because you then need to take care of the sign yourself, but it works with the material flow logic, you can call it, approach. You see here I have incineration good on the input side, I have radioactive waste on the output side, and that then goes to another product or provider. What you see here, and I forgot this, and it's good that you have this question. I'm not sure if it's here the case, no, but we have not set any providers, even though there may exist providers, because you need to model the product system manually in the EF database. So in Agibalize, EcoInvent, LCA Commons, and so other databases, you are used to make product systems in openLCA by just saying, I can just show by here saying outer link processes, and then openLCA tries to follow the inputs, and that can lead to some funny results, because you have some products that are input or output of processes that are just leftovers and very tiny amounts. It has been a bit cleaner now than in the version 2, but still the case, and therefore you need to build your model yourself by connecting then who can provide so which process is really connecting. Maybe in transportation, if you have a little bit of time, I can try to find something, because in transportation we have some unit processes, and then maybe they have providers for this. So you see here you have a lot of different providers, but it's not good if you just automatically make a product system and automatically connect to or let the software decide, but you need to decide yourself. But I think here it's not totally a problem, because the systems are quite small. You have typically system processes, and therefore you don't have these 10,000 connected processes that are impossible to manage manually. But you have your own, if you make an AF study, you have your own foreground system that you anyhow need to make yourself, and then you connect to a system process, and then it's finished. Therefore, it's not really too much an issue that this is done manually, but you only need to be aware that in this context you can't or should not use this auto connection, but make it like this so that I can just, so that you have it, you uncheck auto link, and then you have a product system that consists only of this one process, and then you can go here and say search providers, and then you see all the different possible providers, and then you can say, okay, I want to add here the one, or maybe not Canada or Brazil, but from Belgium, like this, and then you have it connected, and you see then it's also done, because then you have, no, this is only output. Waste is, of course, you can also think how is waste treated, but you don't have further inputs that you need to worry about, so therefore this is quite feasible, we think. Yeah, so that's a very good question, thank you.
And maybe the same counts for the direct calculation. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, and direct calculation is even not even worse, but but direct calculation means you calculate a system without making the product system, what we see here. So this, where you see the processes that are connected, but you just follow the structure of the database, and then the software takes the first either provider that is specified, or the first it finds to connect the products. That is very useful for big databases like Silka or so, where you have one product only provided by one process. But here it's exactly the opposite case, so you should not at all apply direct calculation for the EF database.
Perfect. There was a question, do I understand correctly that the database only integrates parts of existing databases, such as Econvent, Gabi? Like, I think it's referring to the nodes. Like,
no, it's not existing. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit, of course, the nodes, the owners of these nodes, of course, have won these contracts, I think, because they have some background in, where was it? Some background in data creation, and of course Econvent has this, for example, Sphera has this, and so on, and then industry associations or Blanc also has this, but it's a bit, sometimes these have been modeled from scratch, I think, sometimes they are adaptations of existing data sets, but it's a bit a mixture, but it's definitely not at all just a plugin of the full Econvent database, for example, but this has been really prepared for a tender that was issued by the Commission to create some some data sets that you see here. So for chemicals, for example, was Econvent, apparels was Econvent, or initially not, but now chemicals for paint was CEPA, for example. I know because we host this node, and so on.
Concerning this, also how it was decided which parts to integrate of the database, I guess. Can the new database be linked to a complete Econvent database, for example?
Yeah, good question. So our aim was, and we also achieved, to include everything that is contained in these nodes at the point when we collected it. So it was September, so I forgot. We documented this, I think, but we aim to include everything, and it was almost possible to include also everything, but we did not include, for the product systems, we need to exclude some, because we just talked about this, because they are provided by different nodes, and Econvent has product systems that are linking to protected data sets or processes. So when you download or when you get the product system, then you can't use it because it links to something that is not shared as download link, and therefore it's not complete. And that was not possible to be contained here, but otherwise we include everything that was part of these different nodes for those that exist. So you saw that the EF2, so the previous version, servers have been shut down. So those that only offer these, so it's version 3.1. But there we did not exclude anything, and it was also, if you don't count these duplicate deletion or so, but that's somehow not really adding content, I think. So apart from that, we really have the full database here.
Next question, would it be possible to show one of the partly disaggregated processes with dummy inputs to show how it works?
Yeah, that is basically these product systems, what I call product systems, are partially, so this is EF terminology, these are partially terminated processes. So you see that here, we are here barley grain, dried production, names are always very long here, but mix at farm, Germany, and you see that you have here electricity inputs and barley grain output, and I can maybe also no, sorry, I wanted to go to settings and say show elementary flows. No.
And if you open it,
Huh?
Sorry.
What? I wanted to show you that you have elementary flows here too, yeah. And so this is an incomplete or partially aggregated data set, but then connected to a few other, so it has 4 input products, and these are connected to other processes that are in turn system processes. Therefore, you have this bold line, and that's, therefore this is this, and then you have here, that's a bit funny, but you have here aggregated or foreground elementary flows, and therefore edit this, but somehow, I don't know why, it should be, no.
I think this is a relict.
Okay, fine. So sometimes the processes are a bit funny, you see, so it doesn't contain really something, but yeah, so does that answer your question? It's a bit...
Didn't text again, but maybe it will come.
Okay.
Common question is like to use other LCA methods in this.
Sorry, yes, you mentioned also can this be linked to eco-invent? Well, we are really in a big silo on purpose, or I mean, I didn't decide, but the idea is to have one consistent method, one consistent database, and therefore you have only one nomenclature, you have one method, and you don't connect other databases to this in the EF application sphere or so, if you want. And therefore, these flows don't fit to eco-invent directly. I mean, you can apply a mapping. We have, for example, just recently released the method for our reference flow system, EF31 impact assessment method, and there we need to apply this mapping, of course. But from this database as such, you have totally different flows. So therefore, I mean, technically, you can just import eco-invent into this, and then you have both together, but you will not get... You're right. It's like really, I would say, this Frankenstein. So you have 2 different, totally not connected systems, and you can't. You get if you apply here the EF method, you don't get any impacts from the eco-invent parts of your system and so on. So it's technically possible, but it doesn't make much sense, I think.
Okay, the LCA methods other than the one provided.
Yeah, and also that's similar. Yes, similar question, because here also we have. I didn't show this, but we have here only one method included, namely the environment footprint version 3.1 with these defined categories and this normalization weighting set provided. You see that it's a bit, so these subcategories don't have normalization weighting factors, but that doesn't matter. You can still apply then normalization and weighting. And this is the only method that exists for this database on purpose. Yeah. So whatever we can open here land use, for example, and then you see all the different flows. And here again with the location for these flows that has a different factor, and that is really on purpose. And so it's similar as if you want to import eco-invent into this database. If you want to import whatever recipe into this database, it is possible technically. Software doesn't complain or allows this, but it will not provide you useful results. You will not, with a recipe method, for example, from our method package or from the eco-invent method package, you will not get any contribution from these data sets here because the flows are totally different.
Okay, next question. Do you have any insights on when the PEF program will become required, or the latest status of the proposal?
Oh, that's a tough question. No, I think typically I don't remember actually, but it was maybe 2006 or so that this was first mentioned, and then you thought, okay, we have maybe 2 years of testing and then 2 years of full implementation, and then it's out in 4 years, and that was really much delayed, and it's hard to say. And I'm not too much in the inner circle, of course, but I think it's also typically, a bit for because it's a multi stakeholder process, difficult to know this for everybody, or anybody rather. But I think now there are, of course, whatever, safe, sustainable by design, and CBAM, and so there are some really important regulations or rules in place or coming to become in place that basically rely on an LCA methodology, which is EF for the Commission, and therefore I think this becomes important, but of course it's not serious or so to now say this will be next year or whenever, but it has been always slower than you thought, but I think it's more pressing to get something practical also out and to make this more than just voluntary, but we all need to see, I think.
There is a question on how it was decided which data the respective node owners share.
Yeah, that's easy to answer. Thank you. It was just, or maybe half easy, because within the Commission there was a group, or still a group at the JRC that was or is responsible for running this, the data side of this of the EF, and they put out a tender for data sets, and they had first also like an inquiry what people think is interesting, and then also ask potential data providers what they think could be possibly provided, and then it was just a normal tender like project, and then this was awarded to some. We also applied one but didn't get it. I told this story several times already because others offered for 1 cent and so but that was a fixed, so then you had a fixed list, and then could or must, it was mandatory to provide this, and you had a penalty, I think, if you did not provide or did not manage to provide the data sets. So therefore it's a bit like this, but they know that, for example, in the first version, waste paper was not provided as a data set, and then because we had some context with the waste, or not waste, but paper industry, and then of course newspaper is like 90-80% recycling paper or so. If you don't have waste paper, then you cannot really model the system in a reasonable way, and that was just not present, and so therefore there was some initiative then from the industry to include some data sets, and so this is also ongoing. But then once this was awarded as a project, then it was theoretically needed to be fulfilled, and only if you say if you take this project, I can't manage, then it was maybe you could somewhere exclude it or so. But in principle, that was then the list, and that was then also it's also the current status of the database.
There's one more question. I think we answered partly, but it's like, what is the primary source of data for the database, and how is the data quality ensured? If you understand the origins, and what might help to verify methods and data itself and its reliability.
Yeah, of course, in EF, data quality itself has a lot of attention, and it's maybe also clear from this bold statement from the website that this is quite, seen as important. But on a technical level, I think it's often still there are some issues, as I had explained. These data sets are all reviewed by 2 persons. I'm also responsible for some reviews, so in theory, then this should ensure that they are well modeled. But of course, it just happens that you make mistakes. And for example, I forgot now what, but there was in the first version or second version rather, there was one data set for something like iridium or so a metal that you need for photovoltaic cell production, and the land use there was a mistake there, and someone made a calculation that if you just take the annual production of this metal, then it would be 10 times the Earth's surface, so it can't be correct. And so of course it's not you can't avoid that you have some mistakes in these data sets. And I would say it's of course more difficult to spot these mistakes when you only see system processes, because then you can only see the elementary flows, but you don't really see the connections that are maybe not correct and so on. So also from that side, and you know, we are open source. I'm convinced that open source software is also good, and I think also for databases it's good if you're able to see the detailed modeling and do not hide this, because that also increases quality. But it's I see practical limitations, so to say, that don't allow this. But I think that maybe also that evolves. Yeah, but there is a maybe sorry, one final thing. You have a data quality assessment for the data sets also. So you have at the very bottom here, you have here the LCD data quality system, and that is in openLCA. Probably you know this. So it's not because I'm using the dark version. We improve this still. But you see here's this pedigree style description of what is very good to very poor. In technological representativeness, geographical representativeness, completeness, and so forth. And that is applied on the process level, and therefore here for the process you see here process schema LCD data quality system, and then you see here the assessment according to the schema as a result of the review. I know because I've done this, and then you need to basically come up with these scores of, I think, always 2 people or 2 persons per data set.
There's I made a note, if you work with EF 2.0, can I migrate to EF 3.1? Because it was already a question asked, I think.
Yeah, I think typically you don't have 2 big systems, so product systems, so therefore I would rather do this manually. It's of course possible in openLCA to import to export rather your product system in the previous version if you are in version 2, and then import this here and to update the connections. We have done this for equipment, which there's also of course a more common question, and then you have a lot of different connected processes. We have a script to do this. We haven't developed this for here, but it would be a bit quite easy to do this, but we haven't had a request for this. So manually is maybe possible. If it's a huge system, then you can think of a script, or we can also discuss, but it's would be possible, but so far it's not supported by a tool or so.
There's one more question popping up. So the basic incompatibility was the reason why I got different results for a product system using openLCA LCA method, EF 3.1, and the included EF method.
I don't understand.
So maybe someone put from the method package into the EF database?
Yeah, but then this is similar to my previous answer, that this is really, think again, a big silo. So you're not supposed to be able to bring in other methods, other data, and work with them together. So this is really an old world. And then the idea is to have everything consistent, more or less. But it's quite clear that if you import here AF from our method package, that this brings different results. And also if you export the method from here to another openLCA database, this will also bring very different results to not work or not provide any results. But I think that's a bit, I would say that's somehow by design like this.
I think it was a lot. I made a fun question also.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think is the highest number of flows being in a process? Talking about the system process we see.
I haven't checked. What?
Can you guess?
But you know, right?
Yeah, we checked it. Yeah.
I think 1,700.
No, it's way more. It's 24,000. It's a broiler production.
Really?
Yeah. But it has to do with land use, of course. So I'm not sure which of them, but maybe check the EU one. Yeah. Then.
Yes.
You see how, I think it's 16K as input and 8K as output.
Yeah, I think it's some time ago, like 3 years ago, we had quite an issue with large tables here to just manage them and to scroll through them. That has been quite nice, but we had some headaches here to solve or to overcome. But okay, thank you.
Thanks to Conrad for checking.
Yes.
With this, I think there is no more question from the chat at least.
Okay, nice. Hope it was useful. As again, the last time we will put this, so YouTube records it and processes it, and then we will put it on the channel. And we didn't check really now the questions to the previous live stream, but we will do this more frequently. And so if you have further comments there, then put the questions there. And yeah, I hope it was useful for you. And if you have any other comments that we need to or should follow, whatever, like for example the microphone, then please go ahead. And I think yeah, for us it's quite a nice way to explain a bit what we do and to do this in a bit more interactive way than if we just write a text or so, because then you have the chance to also react on this and we can react to your questions. So hopefully it was useful for you. Yeah, thank you also, Jonas, for doing this and for sitting here. Yeah, and then I can conclude. Thank you very much and have a good weekend upcoming. Bye-bye.
Bye.